Hello, everybody. Welcome to the weekly briefing. It's good to be with you on this Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening, wherever you might be. Thursday morning for you, Matt. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, we're in the
Thursday.
future again.
Yeah, always in the future. So wherever you are, whatever time zone, great to be with you. Um, Today's a fun conversation because I'm going to try to piggyback on all of the workshops that we've been doing for the last 3 days and digital design days in Milan. And I kind of explain the process that we went through and the stuff there. But just want to first say, hey, Matt, how's it going? And Matt, before
It's
we
going
dive
great.
into the details, I will actually, because we keep forgetting, let's talk about Rekindle. You've been working hard on Rekindle, so this might be a good chance to pitch that too.
Yes. Okay. Well, yeah, we were just trying to figure out exactly when it's launching. The plan is to launch it at the end of the month, and Rekindle is a workshop I've been working on, drawing from my past experience of being a studio owner, and it's a sales and marketing course for people who hate sales and marketing. Is the shortest version, but I guess I was developing this at Camp MoGraph in Australia using hot sauce as a physical metaphor an embodiment of your creativity. And I guess trying to figure out how you're different, how you stand out, and how you can actually imbue this and teach your team to talk about it, teach your producers to talk about it, and tell your clients about what makes you amazing in an authentic way that's good for you, rather than feeling you need to drown out the internet with marketing and sell to everybody.
And you did this at Camp MoGraph in Sydney. Um,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah, up in Queensland, we did it with about 60 people, and everyone found their secret sauce, and everyone had that moment. It was very exciting.
yeah, it's really fun. I have to say, Matt, there was a moment where we were talking to some of these brands, right? It was the studios and brand talking over the last couple of days. And at one point, one of the guests said, she said, "Listen, the hardest thing is to figure out how to tell the difference from one company to the other. You guys have to do something to distinguish yourself." And all I could think was, "Oh my gosh, I wish I had that on camera. I would be playing that as a rekindle, conversation over and over and over again." It was just such a classic. Like, of course, it's
Ah,
really, really hard to be a client and try to figure out what makes one company different from the other.
yeah, and not just have a bland positioning statement, but have something that meaningful to you and that you want to tell people. There's nothing worse than having a cheesy line and then you repeat it and you go, "Oh my God, is that how I sound? That's not me."
Yeah, yeah. I sat on a call today. I've been working client for 8 years, and I asked them their positioning statement today, and they struggled with it. So sometimes you just have to know what it is and practice it. And I think the cheesy lines are the ones you can tell where somebody is like trying to remember the script that they convince themselves instead of in their
Yeah.
heart know what their hot sauce, their secret sauce is, and just be able to speak it plainly in plain English. So a lot of work to be done. Okay, there's a little bit of conversation. I think in a couple of weeks we're going to do a webinar, basically just explain this thing, give people a takeaway, and then if people want to go deeper and be part of Rekindle, we're kicking that off in early November. It's 6 weeks, so we'll be done before Thanksgiving. So we're trying to get this timing down so it works for everybody. But thanks for
Mm.
working on that too. It's really fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. But let's talk Milano. What's been happening,
Milana.
Tim?
Okay, so it's I don't know if you don't know, I'm going to say it really fast because I think most of you have kind of seen or heard what we've been doing. But Digital Design Days in Milan, it's a 3 day event that takes place. It's a stage like many of the others. If you've been to a design conference, you've seen it. A lot of great speakers talking about the work that they've done, our product that they've done. What DDD does a little bit different is that they actually get some brands, like some clients on stage too. They have access to really incredible brands just being in Milan. So these brands get up there, or industry leads, futurists. In one case, Kathy was on stage talking about Generation Alpha, that what their lives are going to be like, and so on, just to get us to think differently. So what we did is take advantage of the opportunity of these great brands being there and the studios being there, and we put together what we called a think tank. And a think tank is quite honestly exactly as it sounds. We ask people to not have an agenda, to have just use their experience and start to think about what the issues are, what the challenges might be, and then what solutions are going to come from that. So just working through that process over 3 days to try to create a discovery, and the desire for me really is an original thought, not just repeating something. So that's the conversation we had over a 3 day period, is some workshopping it, very smart people, incredible experiences, and just pulling out more and more and more of these concepts.
Wow. And yeah, with the so brands were really opening up and talking about what they needed.
Oh yeah. Well, one, you have to imagine two things, right? If you've been invited and you accepted it, you've accepted it because you want to have this conversation also. So it's, I know, I feel like the same way, like almost like surprised, like, wait, people, the brands want to have this conversation, because I don't know what we tell ourselves, but we disqualify ourselves often from a conversation that quite honestly is easy. Once you
Mm.
begin, or you develop some trust between you and them, for them to let their guard down, have a conversation. I still think there are things that are guarded and necessarily guarded because of the role that they played, but it's nice to have an open door and be able to begin that dialogue.
Yeah. So yeah. Were the and how were the designers acting? Were they geeking out? Were they being fluid? Was it an open conversation? Did you have to get people to just chill out a bit, or were people desperate and frothing to start trying to get a job?
Well, we weren't pitching our jobs, right? So there was nothing where we're
Yeah,
like,
I know, but
say,
some
give
people are
me, give
pitching
me,
all the
give me.
time.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's fun. And that's what kind of the practical idea of came from for today's topic is, to be honest, it got very practical. Um, so I'll just say, so yesterday probably is the conversation with some of the most practical takeaways. We had
Mhm.
two brands in the room. It's not going to kind of tell you which brands they are. It's better to just kind of just
Brand
for the
X.
purpose of, yeah, of this conversation, just leave it like that. But the open conversation we had with them was very open. Both of the leaders that were there were former agency people.
Right.
So they actually know the other side, the conversations that were there, and they could relate to it. The conversion from an agency over to a brand, and the job that were there. So easily translate between the two worlds. At one point, there was a question asked, um, and one of the ladies said, "You're really going to hate me for this answer, but depends on what day of the week it is." Um, so, and what she meant by that is, it's not it's not easy just to say, and some days are easier than others. Quite literally, different days of the week have different structures, different meetings, different purposes. And her attitude from one day to the other could be
Mm.
bad. So it's a lottery system. Um, so the question might have been like, "Hey, if I if I'm trying to deliver with you and get my budget raised, when's the best time to approach that?" And that was her thing. It's like, kind of depending on my attitude or what day of the work it is, what the structure was. So really funny. There was a follow-up question from one of the studio owners, and he said, "I'm almost afraid to say this, but what day of the week is the best week? Like, really get practical."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everyone kind of laughed and smiled. And then there was a short conversation, and we came down to practically Thursday. Thursday's the best day of the week. Mondays are bad
Wow.
for meetings. Tuesdays are certain decision making. Wednesdays too early in the week. Thursday was the answer. So if you want to do outreach to your client to find new work, Thursday's the best day, and don't deliver on Friday.
Why Thursday? Why Thursday?
They had their reasons. Most of it was just like what a relief day was, but the real takeaway was kind of this idea of, well, listen, it's actually, I'm a person, and I have good days and bad days. I have busy days and not busy days. And she even went on to say, it's so interesting because people make this assumption, even in delivering a project, that Friday's always the best day to deliver. And she said,
Mm.
it would be really great if someone actually asked me once, what day of the week would be best for us to to meet up with you? What day of the week was the best way to deliver? And so I asked her, are you serious? Like, would you want us to say, what's your budget? What's your schedule? And then what day of the week is best for us to follow up? And she goes, Tim, it would be a relief. And what she meant by that was, you would see me as a person, and it would mean we're having a relationship. You actually cared about some of the things I have to challenge, the challenges I have to face, or some of the practical things that are part of my life. Are actually big, almost like this idea of like we're developing a relationship,
Yeah,
and
no,
that's the
the
key element.
practicality with yeah, with everyone working from home and working out of office, weeks are all screwed up. We had to do a showreel presentation, and we were given the 3 p.m. on a Friday slot. And in Australia, most people go for pub lunch on Friday, and so I just thought, oh, it'll be the worst. There'll be 3 beers in, no one will be paying attention. It'll be like speaking to a bunch of toddlers. But it was in fact perfect because they actually opened up the free bar at 4, and so all the employees, maybe they were 3 beers in, but then they also grabbed a bottle of wine and they're ready for story time. And they just wanted to be shown videos and like entertained. And so we actually had about 20 people there. I brought in postcards. It was a great meeting, but totally took me by surprise. But yeah, if that same person had to go over and check their laptop at 5 to see if the thing arrived, that would be the worst.
Yeah, it's like the really truly that the concept is know your client, or we summarized it in one of our big action items is to be known and to know, right? So one of the big takeaways that we walked away with is knowing your client, and to be known by your client is the same thing. And this word relationship is the key answer. We
Mm.
have the 3 R's: real, relationship, reward. I would almost, after the last 3 days, say no, the answer is relationship, real, reward. And there's a lot of reasons why a relationship works. I'll give you another example.
Yeah.
Um, Another one that she said almost immediately afterwards is, yeah, and can you also ask me which video program I use before you just assume I'm on Zoom? Because at our company we can't
Mm.
use Zoom; we have to use Teams. So Teams is installed anywhere, and when you send me a Zoom link and I don't realize it, I'm just agreeing to the calendar invite. And now it's like the time I'm supposed to meet, and I have to download this software and get this login and all this stuff. She goes, I show up to meetings very irritated because I'm 2 minutes
Yeah. No,
late and I
sounds
walk through, jump through hoops, and no one really asked me what would be most convenient for me.
yeah. No, and it's funny, particularly production companies are so used to bending over backwards and doing whatever people ask that we forget that other people aren't like that. Or that I guess as you're saying earlier, we're a service industry, and you wouldn't like if a waiter just came and chucked your food on the table and went, "Ah,
Yeah,
I've
that
got
kind
another
of,
table."
kind of the big takeaway is like we're almost forgetting some of the most practical elements of who the person is and what their life is, and getting to the other side of their fence, right? So now all of a sudden, those first two questions we ask: what's your schedule? What's your budget? Who are we
Yeah.
serving with that? We're serving ourselves. And matter of fact, we're to be honest, we learned that we're limiting ourselves. We're asking that client, can you do the work and hand that to me? Tell me what it is. Give me the parameters, and I will work within those parameters. And then we jump to a bunch of assumptions. What you must want from me is X, Y, and Z. And I forgot to ask you important questions like, how was your day? Which web service protocol do you use, and which day of the week should I talk to you from? Right. To those two next questions almost sound like a partner. Like I'm actually engaged, and now I'm going over the fence and I'm serving them instead of me. Basic questions. It was it was almost like a trigger for the entire conversation changed, because then right after that, someone
Mm.
someone said, can you be honest with us? Are you guys going through transitions, and how can we help you go through a transition? And then the next word that came out was trust. I don't know, could I trust you? Well, that word hangs heavily on relationship. If I'm going to
Mm.
help, if I'm going to believe that you can help me, I have to be deeper into a relationship with you in a situation where I'm going through transition or my team is leaving. One of the ladies said, I can't even tell you legally, or internally, not legally, but structurally, if I just received budget cuts being handed down to me, and I turned to you and said, we just got budget cuts, I just revealed something that might influence the stock market, right? So
Mm.
they hold on to that information, even though it's a legitimate reality for them. they can't tell you, hey, I have budget cuts that's being handed down to me. They just have to process forward, structurally put the things in place, and we might be a little bit insensitive, asking for more, but there's nothing left, and they're not going to tell you there's nothing left. But they also said, but there's always money somewhere if it's the right cause. Well, now it's almost like, ooh, it's more of an art form than a science to find out what their budget is. And the answer is, yeah, like you have to kind of know the person, know the brand, and ask those questions in a sensitive way.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Ron's good statement. Ron, it's tough because agencies are asking for ballparks and schedules first before we have a chance to chat because their concepts are not sold through and they want a gut check. That
Yeah.
is tough. They're not being very relationshipable.
Yeah. It's one of the biggest complaints about agencies is that there's old structures and new needs, right? So we have this very big assumption that there is, here's the other term we use, is like, can I be in the room with the decision maker? That's a very naive understanding now of how decisions are being made, as if there's one decision maker. When there's a
Mm,
spectrum of decision to be made across multiple platforms, there might be a key person or a critical mass for a decision. But to think of like you're going to be in the room with the decision maker, the reality is you probably don't want to be in that room with that decision maker. It's not your place. You'd be out of turn. It's a faster meeting than you expected. But what
yeah.
you do want to
They
do,
might make the wrong decision.
yeah, exactly right. Um, but what you do want to do is be in person. That was a big point that they made. They're like, "Are you kidding? You to do?" Um, one of the ladies said, "Every pitch you should try to be in person." And then she said, "Listen, I know it's not real, right? You can't be in person in every pitch." But she's like, "But be in person in every pitch." And what she means by that is the investment of time that you put into it and the type of connections you make when you're in person, opposed to making these assumptions and doing something just remotely. It's just a world of difference. So it's
Mm,
not practical, it's not real, it's not always, but she's just recognizing of like how much difference that makes. So another assumption we can make is, well, what's your budget, what's your schedule, what software do you use, what day of the week, and are you available to meet in person? Is there
mm,
something, if I were to come to town, is that something available? And one person might say, no, to be honest, it would be really inefficient. I have to do 5 of these pitches in a day. And if everyone came in person, it's not what I can handle right now. And then to accept that respectfully and say, I totally respect that. That makes a lot of sense. And then internally understand what you're up against that day and how you're going to present, right? There's no magic in winning or losing when those odds are stacked against us. There's no like one thing you can do, but just to recognize what that person's up against, and then your approach and your presentation might be a little bit different, might be more meaningful because you have that in mind.
yeah. Did she say if she liked Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon? Did she get that specific?
No, well, that Thursday one was by, if you're going to send out a cold email, do it by Thursday. I think we came down to like, listen, if I have a big inbox, I usually, I don't wait till Thursday to clean my inbox from the weekends. Mondays and Tuesdays, the
Mm,
one our catch up days. Um, the idea though of like, do you work from home? Do you have a 4 day week or work week, or a 5 day work week? When is your team around? What is your day like? Those are all very relevant questions to ask nowadays. And I almost feel like there's a moment I was like, well, no, duh, but I don't think I've ever told anybody of like, oh yeah, just double check if they're working in the office or not. I still think my brain still thinks everyone works in the office all the time. And it
mm.
clearly not. It is a kind of a big conversation that's taking place.
Oh, and you get some people who are like stacking their week into 3 days. Like I only work Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And then their days are so furiously packed that they just act like a horrendous uh OCD person on those 3 days. But yeah, that affects your brain and your schedule.
Yeah, one of the ladies was had a staff of 271 people on our staff. And as she was managing, that's a creative team, multiple creative teams, agencies. Her boss is an SVP who reports directly to the CEO, right? So it's a lot of responsibility. Can you imagine what it's like with her team working 3 day or 4 day work weeks and choosing things? She's up in a lot of stress and she's trying to get things done. There's a lot of like new management you have to put into place. So how can you pitch in and can you be part of a solution instead of be part of the problem? Or how can you take some of the elements out of their hand and serve them better? Those are really great things to consider. There
Mm.
is a reality. They're not going to ask you to do something more than they think you can handle. Um, so if you are a live action production company, they're not going to ask you to come in and be a creative strategist in on a pitch. It's not a reality. But one gave the example of a museum. In this case, the client and an agency they worked together on a museum project, and she was telling him, when you did that museum, it's really great, but there's a lot of follow up on that museum. Are there other locations? Are there evolutions? Should we change the display and so on? There's a lot to still be considered that she can't always consider it. So to have someone else without being asked or without, having to have a formal bid or pitch, to just have someone thinking through all the possibilities, that it's not just about execution done. And
Mm.
to Ron's point, to have someone just limit of like, just tell me what the budget and schedule is. That's where we're limiting ourselves and doing a disservice, to only just asking us what the parameters are. And I'm still RevThink. I'm the one that says, hey, make sure you have a clear schedule and budget. I'm not saying don't do it, but to start understanding there might be new aspects to that conversation and nuance sometimes. That's a very relational approach to your pitches or to your client relationships.
And relationships take work. You know,
Yeah.
how we can't buy our clients flowers, or maybe you could, but you've got to treat them like human beings and put in that effort.
Yeah. One quite honestly said, they said, listen, the in a time of need, I'm only going to call people I know. Right. And she's almost apologizing. She's like, I'm very sorry. I'm pretty sure that when as the industry is hurting and there are cutbacks and slowdowns and many people want fresh work, she's like, I don't have the luxury of doing it. So my
Mm.
existing relationships are the ones I'm gonna use. And that's the pattern I've been seeing, by the way. Like a lot of people are hurting and a few are just killing it because they have those relationships and they're being relied on very heavily in a time of stress. Um,
Mm.
so it will evolve into new relationships. And I'm not saying it's impossible to form a new relationship, but if you're looking for work right now, you should be thinking through who do you have a relationship with and what are they up to, and start thinking of new questions to ask them instead of just the give me kind of economy, that you can, just assume it's coming.
And buy them some flowers,
Yeah. Yeah. Buy them some
metaphorically.
flowers.
No, or
Yeah. Buy him some flowers. Buy him, give them the time, understanding. Oh, here's another one. Um, this is a strong response. Relationship, trust. The next one was patience. And she was almost saying patience as a form of trust. It was almost like this. Listen, I know, I know what you do. I know that you need to make that decision. I know what the schedule is. I know what you're up against. But trust me, if I could make that decision right now, I would. You just have to have some patience with me because there's a lot for me
mm,
to consider. And if I'm not ready to make that decision, it's good for both of us for me to hold back. It's not that I'm dropping the ball or don't know. And I know many of us have been in this conversation where we've been feeling ghosted. And in that ghosting, it's been somebody honestly just saying, or not having the time or capacity to say, I don't, I need to figure out something out first before I can award that project to you. Man, it's been very painful. But
mm,
patience is an important element right now, and very relational, right? It's like, okay, I actually have to trust you that you do know what's going on. You know I'm still here, and you know how to get a hold of me if it's time. And my company is my problem to solve, not your problem to solve as my client. So I have to figure things out. I better start cash flowing. I better being smart, not making assumptions, and not limiting my resources or limiting my decisions to resources that used to be available. If times are shifting, I better start thinking different and not putting that burden out there. It makes
yeah.
you kind of unapproachable, right? As a needy person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any questions or thoughts from anyone, or Anyone got any client needs they're tackling at the moment?
Um, let me I'll tell you what the process is we went through a little bit, you might be curious to how the think tank works and how we got into these discussions. Um, so my method is this: collect the dots and then connect the dots. Um, so in order to collect dots, one of the things you do is basically brainstorming tools and methods. A lot of post-it notes and butcher paper to get up there. But the idea in connecting or collecting the dots is actually to remove the echo chamber. So one of the first things we did is ask a very simple question: what are your challenges? What are your opportunities? And most of the items that were being put out there weren't exactly repeated, but they were repeated. I mean, honestly, out of the room, there was 5 people who put cash flow. There's a lot of people who put AI. A
Mm.
lot of people put things about employees, and these are very simple, always the same answer. It's almost like I was asking a class of third graders, did you read the homework last night? What's the answer to this question? And everyone knows how to answer that. So it's not that it's not true or real, but our minds are triggered by the elements and people around us. If I'm going to find something new, I almost have to take out the old things, to empty that glass to put something new into it. So our first exercise was exactly that. Like, let's get this stuff out, let's put it on the board, and then recognize that it's there, give it its moment, and then say, great, now we have to go beyond these boards. This is just our echo chamber talking to us. We had people from all over the world. We had such a spectrum of design services, web and experiential and motion design and title design, and I don't know, people inventing stuff that I promise you've never seen before when it came to like visual graphics generated by data. It was insane that the class of the creators we have in this room, and they had the same words on the board. So we're like, wow, where does this come from? So as we moved that and we started asking more questions, we can find more answers. So our next round, as we discern and we started categorizing, it was really interesting because it wasn't me. I didn't choose this stuff. I just asked people questions and they put the things on the board. And then as I put them there, then I start categorizing, right? Start connecting the dots. And two big themes came out of that: humanity and technology. So all these new words that we had were I mean, it was probably 5-1, 6-1 answers of humanity over technology. And it wasn't discerned down to like, or asked something that would, I think it was just something we were excited about. What do you know, and where's the future going? But the heavily need for the human element to be part of it, and maybe that human element's part of a defense mechanism against technology, but the other part is just knowing that that's where most of the problems are. Um, so then with those new concepts, we're now primed to bring in the clients into the room, because now the first questions we're asking are human questions and not like basic, can you help me with my cash flow? Like got
Mm.
rid of that first thing and now have there. And I think I could almost see a moment of being refreshed by those clients, and to have them know that we were ready to listen and hear them.
Mm.
And one of our first guests, I think she just blew our mind because she was part of a technology team that worked in Unreal Engine, and she just moved all of us into so far into the future, where branding is actually going to go, where people are actually going to interface, how we're going to interface with our cell phones using Unreal Engine to engage something. And we're just thinking, holy crap, I don't even know what the deliverable is going to be for that. And you're like, right. So now where's your mind discovering something new? And I think that was such a fun moment because everyone was leaning in and getting closer, and it was getting kind of loud because the conference was going to start, but we just got closer and closer to really engage with like, what is this thing for real that the future's dragging us towards it? And if I'm thinking old ways into new worlds, it's not going to work. And Generation Alpha is coming up behind us to give us a new way of thinking about something. We're going to be on top of it in a different way. So I just love that one moment of engagement because that's where the word humanity came up. And then our next sessions, as I've been saying, became very practical. How can I
Mm,
serve you? How can I help you? Hey, ask me what day of the week is best for me. Ask me what software I
yeah.
use. Ask me what my concerns might be, or what my
Yeah.
team is dealing with. It was really great, like just breaking it down to hearing the real needs and being part of the solutions.
Yeah, for sure. Jocelyn has a practical question where she says, any trends in terms of what industries brands are buying right now, particularly at the end of the year? Did anyone talk about that?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So these are major brands, luxury brands. Some of them are technical brands. Some of the brands I didn't really understand this. I didn't recognize the entire scope of what these decision
Yeah.
makers are up against. Um, Without a doubt, like the slow economy. So these brands are dealing with slow buyers, right? They're not starting the economic trend. They're reflecting an economic trend. So if there aren't buyers in a weak economy, then they're not going to be able to have revenue to do something with it. So one, you recognize that going up our food chain, the lack of dollars comes from a lack of consumers. That's not their fault, but they're reacting and responding to it. One of the things that they're leaning into, obviously, is a technological idea. Um, they're looking for some key elements to it. One is authenticity with technology. So I love that is like one of the first elements. And we've heard if you don't know what I'm talking about, just turn on the news or go to a dinner with somebody. They'll tell you what authenticity is, and you know all that stuff. It's like, is it real? Is it fake? All this kind of stuff. Do we like it? Is it licensed? Blah blah blah. All that AI talk. We already know that stuff. But authenticity would say something more like, um, do you really understand the parameters that we're up against, and is it meeting a genuine need? Or are you just taking a cheap, easy way out? So that's the authentic point of view. There we go. Um, the next one is efficiency. There actually people are leaning very heavily into efficiency. There's no other way of getting around it. And part of the reason for efficiency is that demand for deliverables has increased way beyond the scope of any team. So it's not just like someone's lazy or cheap or looking for a profit. It's become a very practical reality. And as the evolution of our consumer technology grows, we're going to see more and more and more advancement in that space. So that's going to be really great and interesting and scary for some of us when that comes out. So efficiency is there. We kind of know what that means, or those of us that are thinking in one way might be thinking, oh, that's a cutback of team or members. It doesn't sound that way. It just means that your team members better step up and understand how this technology works. And lastly, the idea is maybe I'll summarize it again as trust. But and this idea of trust is like understand that it's still going to be around, it's still going to be good. So to be afraid of the advancement isn't going to help you at all. But to trust that there's a direction and a place for you is great. And the last speaker, this guy named Peter Smart, his last slide said, we need to understand a new relationship with our technology. So he even brought in that word relationship again when it came into terms of technology and really understand like it it's not going to go anywhere. So we better understand what it really means and how to engage in it and with it in the appropriate and right way. So there's still a lot to figure out. No one ever said we're there, but it wasn't like a scream, like a wake up call, but it was just like a reality check of like, this is going to really kind of be fun and it's going to kick some of our butts, but it's going to make us step up into something great. And the world's going to need it. So we better be ready for it. So there's a lot of encouragement and energy around that.
Mm, that's good. Better than despair and dismay. That's way better.
Yeah, very, very little of conversations like that. One presentation was a guy that showed generative graphics made from data. And one of the examples he used was earthquake data. And Matt, I'm gonna get Jonathan onto one of these calls with us because the way he's doing it, when he got off stage, he admitted so many people approached him with different ideas that he hadn't even thought of yet. He's like, "Wow, there's some really great ideas available still to use our technology," and he's just getting started. You can almost see like the excitement around and a revelation around some of that moment. So there was a lot of encouragement coming from two people in that way.
Mm. Whew, that's
I,
cool.
I could talk about this all day, but if you guys feel free to ask me questions, I'll hang out with you as much as possible. I don't want to keep people beyond. It's already been 37 minutes. But
Yeah,
if I
Michael
anything I could
Henderson
do,
is that Michael Henderson's looking for a clip. Is there anywhere to see anything, or do you had to be there?
it's a really good question. I was going to reach out to the founder. They did record everything. I mean, there's cameras on, so I'm guessing they recorded it. I don't know what their policy is at DDD. But if I can find it or it's out there, I'll make sure it's there. And if not, I'll just grab that person and have them come join us on the weekly briefing. So we can just get our own presentation, personal presentation too.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's late for you, Tim. You probably need to go and, well, I guess it's you're in Europe. They'll be just having second dinner right now and
Yeah.
in the piazza.
No, kid you not, my dinner just arrived. So they just
All
walked
right.
in. Right. It's only like, what is it? It's 11:30, Matt. We just got started.
Of
My
course, it's
first night
second
here,
dinner.
dinner
Perfect
was
Yeah.
served
timing for
at,
dinner.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
you got to go dancing.
Yeah, exactly. There's a pub right here. I gotta go afterwards. It's
All
really
right.
been sweet, and thank you all for your support, and thank you all for the birthday wishes. It was fun getting some of those wishes yesterday, and Erich kicked that off for me, so I'm pretty fun. I do appreciate you all, and if you don't, I see some new names here. If you're not part of Rev community, feel free to jump in that thing and be part of this conversation ongoing. A lot of the conversations and discussions we have come from what we see and hear through the community. It's revthink.com/community. Feel free to join and be part of that and hear more and watch a replay of this video, even any other
Mm.
videos we find. So, Matt, as always, thanks for your driving this conversation forward. It's great. Thanks, Ron.
Well, see you back in your normal time zone next week.
Yeah, I'll be back in the States, so it'll be great.
Cool. And we'll talk rekindle. In the meantime, ciao. Ciao, Tim. Ciao, everyone.
Ciao. Ciao bueno.
Ciao bueno.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.